Hello, everyone, and welcome to Metaverse Adventures. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm so excited to have Robin. And I'm really looking forward for her presentation, VR Beyond the Surgical Suite, Training for Patient Care and Safety. I'm Amany Alkhayat, the session chair today, and I'd love to welcome Robin. Robin is the CEO of 3 Pound XR and 3 Pound Games. As a pioneer of virtual augmented reality, Robin led 3 Pound Games into the XR space with the galactic planet destroying game Space Dragon for Rift, the highly rated movement system for Oculus, Slime Rancher VR playground, and VR trainings and simulations for medical and manufacturing applications. She has previously served as president of an internet incubator, CTO of a technology manufacturing incubator, director of a major consulting company, consultant and engineer serving Fortune 100 and 500 clients in medical education, manufacturing, supply chain management, and communications. Combining those experiences, Robin recently launched 3 Pound XR, an incubator that forges partnerships with companies to make their XR vision a reality. 3 Pound XR accelerates development by partnering with subject matter experts and building solutions aimed at successful outcomes for their business, as well as providing go-to-market strategies for widespread commercialization. 3 Pound XR builds the highest quality immersion experiences using proprietary rapid development tools and production pipeline process leveraged from more than 12 years of game development experience with 3 Pound Games. So please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to Robin as she shares her groundbreaking insights and experiences. And please, Robin, take it away.
Thank you, Amany. That was awesome. So yes, I am Robin Moulder. Whoa, 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 whoa. My slides just took away here. Sorry, a little sneak preview of the future slides. And as Amany said, yes, I have a deep background in technology, and I also wanted to add that in my early engineering days, I worked in biomedical, developing software for medical devices, and this is what sparked my lifelong interest in using technology to advance medical care. This thing's very touchy, apparently. And again, as it was already previously said, we are a Metaverse accelerator. And what that means is that we partner with companies to enable them to design, develop, market, and launch XR applications. Currently, we have, in addition to the medical applications, there are other games and applications in our pipeline. VR workout is a very notable one in the health and fitness space as a full body workout. It is the only application right now that is workout for your full body. It's a hand tracking application and there's pass through. It's really quite amazing. We're also working on Space Dragon and mixed reality now, and we have another new game coming out called Rocket that's a pass-through social multiplayer hand tracking party game, which, as you can imagine, applies greatly to medical applications because we're leaning into the new technologies and advancing the ways that we interact spatially with everything around us. And we always use all of these game development methodologies to inform how it is we expand our training applications. So, wow, it really wants to just run off of me. I'll try to be very careful about that. So why now? Hospitals and medical facilities were already overtaxed in 2020 when the pandemic hit. No beds, no nurses, equipment shortages. It was all over the news, and it was bad news every day. And yeah, there have been some improvements since then, but really not much. If you've been to a hospital recently, you can tell that everybody's really just like stretched thin. There's still been increases in medical demands, and that's not going anywhere. We have an aging population. It's just going to get worse from here. So the opportunity is great. Virtual reality has the potential to dramatically change how we train medical staff. This study shows that training can be done 4 times faster for learners and that they are 4 times more focused. That's huge. Right there alone is a good enough reason to use VR, let alone all of the other good reasons. Learners felt more connected and were more confident in material. And I know that when I walk into a hospital, especially, it's very confusing just to figure out where you're going. And if I was a new nurse going into a new location and I had to not only figure out my job, first day on the job, what am I doing? I just got trained on these things. Oh, and I also have to navigate the entire hospital, and deal with all the interruptions and the noise and everything else going on. It's extraordinarily overwhelming. And virtual reality has the superpowers to take care of a lot of these issues. So we like to leverage the superpowers of virtual reality and mixed reality. We know that we can dramatically improve medical staff training. Products don't need to be open. Like they will do this. They'll like open packages for training. We don't need to do that in VR. You could open a virtual package. We don't need to waste medical equipment. They have to have equipment in rooms during trainings. They don't need to be there. They could be virtual. They could be mixed reality. We don't even need to have a hospital room. We could train anywhere in the world with anybody, different locations, be in dangerous situations. We could light a fire in the operating room while the nurse is trying to hand the scalpel. Like, oh, wait, there's a fire, emergency situation. All of these things make virtual reality a really good fit for medical training. It's only going to get better from here as headsets get lighter, easier to use, and we get using our hands and interacting spatially. It'll make the entire process easier. So the time is now, and this is a great fit. So we started on our path of accelerating patient care and safety. Our first steps were to find the pain points. I'm sorry, this keeps running off on me. I'm trying not to touch it. So we went through a process of like finding pain points, designing implementation, onboarding hospital staff. We've set up an academic study, and then later we'll talk about the future in this talk. So I'm going to go through each one of these a little bit in more detail. Finding the pain points in hospital and healthcare is quite easy. Hospitals have what are called never and sentinel events. Never event is something you really never want to happen. It's a medical error, and it's something that's always clear to identify, and it's easy to prevent. It's those terrible news stories that you read, like person had the wrong leg cut off because they forgot to mark it. It's also that somebody didn't clear the path in the hospital room and somebody tripped and fell over something, or slipped because that area wasn't mopped up correctly, or there was an infectious disease outbreak in an area and nobody took notice of this, or just identified the issue. So there's a lot of opportunities to figure out what those pain points are simply by looking at the data. What do the lawyers have to say? What are the insurance companies complaining about? And those are quite easy to find in medical. Falls were a top priority. We found that this was a huge area where there were trip and fall, slips, everything. There is a good chance that when people come into a hospital, they are medicated, they are injured, they're getting surgery, in which case, kind of all the above. You're not in familiar surroundings. You're not in your house anymore. So you're used to like getting up in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom where, this is a whole different ballgame now because you're in this hospital bed and you have to get over to that bathroom. Well, you might be medicated as well, or your leg might be injured. So that you're like dealing with all the odds against you in a new location. And it's quite scary for a lot of patients. So we have to be extra vigilant when you talk about like falls prevention, because you got to inform the patient. You have to train the patient on things to watch out for and convince them that, they need to be more vigilant as well. Most people are just sort of in this mindset of like, well, it's just like a hotel. I'm just going to get up and do what I do. So it's kind of the burden is on the hospital staff to make sure everything is as buttoned up as possible, as easy to navigate. So what's the impact on healthcare? These metrics are absolutely overwhelming. 66% of healthcare claims are falls. Wow. 700,000 to 1 million patients. I mean, can you imagine falling in a hospital? It just seems crazy to me to think about that you would go to the hospital with a different injury and potentially come out with a new injury or additional injuries. Adding each injury adds 6 more days. Wow. I mean, nobody wants to be in the hospital any longer than this. And of course, every time that increases, it increases your odds of getting more hurt in the hospital. The cost of falls alone, average cost per patient, $14,000. I mean, these numbers are just astounding. And if you think about, can we move the needle at all? $50 billion in the healthcare system is wasted on falls. What if we could just knock off 10% of that? That would be a huge improvement in healthcare. Our goals and objectives. So we set aside to, determine criteria for success, not just for the hospitals to save money, but also, in every little area. There's all kinds of problems in the hospitals. Like, yes, of course, they want to save money on legal fees. Yes, we want patients to have better patient care. And there's the other problems too, that hospitals don't have space to train anybody. You go into a hospital today, a lot of them have off-site areas to train people, and their trailers or temporary locations. That's very difficult to navigate in the medical system right now. You have to figure out a way to get people in there and get them trained and get them into the room and operating correctly without actually ever being there. So these are all ways that we wanted to kind of measure success with this program, was to look at the key areas that would help different stacks and different stakeholders in the best way possible, and find things that we could actually measure. We know we could measure numbers for dollar amounts, with the falls dollar amounts reduced, with legal fees reduced, would patient care improve because people got hurt less. Lots of opportunities for sure. We built our first set of safety modules. So this is an overview of these 4. Falls prevention was picked for obvious reasons. Suicide prevention, we picked suicide prevention. We have less numbers on suicide prevention. However, one good reason to do suicide prevention, other than the fact that it would be a good idea to do, is also there's a lot of parallels between suicide prevention and fall prevention from a design perspective. So we also wanted to kind of leverage our powers of putting effort into a certain module to say, oh, we should do additional modules that have some similar themes, because we can get more training for the time that we put into the application. Another area that was of high interest was patient room cleaning. There is a lot of issues with C. diff sanitation, patient room cleaning in general. Whenever a patient checks out, it's a mess. I mean, it is really a mess, and it can also be quite dangerous. So not only from they might leave things behind for the next patient from a falls perspective, but also just from a infectious disease protocol perspective. So we want to make sure that the cleaning is done as good as possible to reduce that kind of concern about the next patient coming in and catching a disease from the last patient. Another reason to do patient room cleaning is environmental services often they don't often get as good a training as everybody else. Sometimes we think about the doctors first, we think about the nurses second, and environmental services is very low on the list. And we wanted to increase our pool for the pilot to ensure that we were cutting across a variety of different hospital staff members. This also gave us an ability to kind of test out what works and what doesn't work in a hospital to see where we can have the most effect in training. So our initial pilot participants include up to 500 RN, 322 primary care technicians, and 127 environmental services. Next, we dug into the design and implementation of the modules. This is our acceleration path of how we go about design when we're working with a partner. So first we have to establish our key stakeholders, and we do a deep dive into discovery. We do digital twinning, game design and development. And this is where our, core systems and libraries and our game design principles really come into play here, because we're taking what we know of how to build these systems and how to gamify these objects and applying it to this system and these provided requirements. So these are actually called care bundles in this case, but to us, these are just a set of instructions that have repeating patterns and can be gamified by just figuring out what those patterns are. We also go and dig into the measurement criteria to determine, like, how are we going to measure success, and what are we gonna map to what, so that we can report on this data, and then we get review and feedback. So here's a before, digital twinning. These are real live photos of some reference material. And our digital twin with nothing in it, the basic digital twin. Our falls prevention module has a ton of features in it. And this is just the first pass. So not only is there the immersive digital twin, so that when you're doing this test, you'll know that it's the same way that it will be in real life, and you're actually getting real world experience. We have test items like signage. You're supposed to stop and talk to the person and say, okay, I'm going to put these items up. Here's your fall prevention package, so that the person has a better understanding of what's going on and why this is so important and why they should stay in bed, or do what they're supposed to do. We have bed alarms to make sure that if they get out of bed, that an alarm would go off. So in this case, since we don't have people in the bed, it is really just remember to set the bed alarm. We have a lot of room items in there. So a lot of randomization of room items, gate belts, cords, that sort of thing. Sometimes it is you're supposed to put the item back where it belongs. Other times that you're supposed to take it away. So there's a whole lot of variety in the types of tests and the types of scenarios that we have. There are spills and trash and all kinds of stuff. You'll see some pictures on that in just a minute. Suicide prevention, you'll see why we picked suicide prevention to go along with falls prevention, because they have a lot of same types of items in the room. In the case of suicide prevention, instead of putting a patient belonging back where it belongs next to the bedside table, a lot of times it's take the patient belonging and lock it in a cabinet. So we were able to leverage building one of these modules to get two of these modules for a much lower cost of development, because we looked for those like reusable components like that. And here's falls prevention. So you can see the gate belt here. There's a patient area where, I guess I should be pointing with this. There's the patient area here. This is where you're supposed to put things next to the bedside table. For example, if your phone was across the room and you were medicated, your brain would immediately be like, oh, I'll just go get it myself. When that is not the right answer. You should absolutely call for help and have somebody bring that to you, and not get out of bed unless you're allowed to get out of bed. So we have mopping in this application. You can see on the lower left there that it does affect the change. It's real. You can really mop in VR, and it's really fun. It's way more fun than real life. Suicide prevention, we focus on sharps and putting things away and taking them out of the room. Reporting items is a big important area. Make sure that, if there's medicine that's there that you're not supposed to, you as the nurse or primary care technician or environmental services, if you're not supposed to touch this item, you can report it. So that way it can be taken out of the room for you as you're supposed to do. We have checklists in all of these applications that you can go through and check off yourself to make sure that you know that you've done the job. And then there's also, in-game feedback to tell you that you've done the job correctly. Our environmental services module, a lot of similar scenarios going on with things, mops and dusters and that sort of thing, but we kind of leaned into that cleaning even deeper. Oxicide solution, sporicide solution. If you do the wrong type of wipe on a television screen, for example, it's going to show you that it looks wrong. If you use a rag, and if you use a cleaning solution and you use it for too long, eventually it turns brown. This turns brown and you have to throw it away. So we're using timers to make sure that you're not overusing items when you're not supposed to. So we're checking every possible way that we can support the cleaning to ensure that you're doing the process the best that you can do. This is the room cleaning. You can see it is quite a mess in there. We were actually told at one point to make it messier. Concerns me. We have a cart and refillable items, and there are dusters. You can do overhead cleaning. Anything you could imagine is there. There's wall splotches to clean, and really anything about this project. It is to get you to think about, look behind here, go behind the chair, make sure you lift up this thing. Really dig into all the possible ways that you could overlook stuff. And this is what we found, is that when people use this application, they go, oh, I keep missing this. I keep missing this spot. In the spray here, this chair, I did this multiple times myself. I just kept missing this one area of the chair. You do it with the light off. You do it, we have basically a UV light. You do it with the light off, and you do it like 3 times, and you can't believe that your brain just skips over this area. But once you see it, now you know, and now you think, okay, I don't want to miss that spot. I got to go behind this chair. I got to make sure I get that. This is a very powerful area of this, to use the black light to then see what you casually miss when you're just kind of rushing along in your job. Onboarding hospital staff. And if any of you have implemented any VR solution, you know this is the hardest part. So first, we had to talk about hardware and accessories. We had to come out for on-site trainings. We had to come up with dashboards and reports that would work with them and that they understood it. We had to do analytic software updates frequently to make sure that we were all in sync with what data we're tracking and how. And then there was a lot of customer support, because hospitals don't know about this type of material. These, what are these headsets, and how does IT deal with them? How does IT update them? They don't know any of these things. And this takes a lot of time, and is definitely an undervalued area of VR development, is that this onboarding and delivery section of this is a tremendous part of the project. But we did it. We got them in headsets, and they loved it. So we went out there. You can see our people out there. We were putting this is actually us ripping apart the foam to put these together, so they had cases so that they could carry them around the hospital and take them to different areas. We went out there 3 times, did a train the trainer session. They loved it. The trainers really got into it. We onboarded them, and we made sure that they were now like as well prepared as they could be to help other people while we were going through more of this pilot. And once we left the area, they needed to be able to do this on their own. So we have key stakeholders who are trained up on how to train people in VR, and then they manage the entire process. And here's our metrics and analytics that we worked out together. Like, we needed a way to show what got missed, what needs to be worked on, anything that you could sit down with another person and say, listen, I know you did this thing 3 times. Why do you keep missing this one area? Why do you keep missing this? Maybe we should talk about that. Or if you look at all the data and everybody keeps doing a certain thing the wrong way, it's an opportunity to take a look at the procedure and go, maybe that's wrong. Maybe we should talk about that. So it has definitely brought up a lot of really interesting questions. In this case, the fall mats were a big topic, and we're actively taking those out of the application now, because the hospital decided that they're not that useful, fall mats next to the bedside. And I find that really interesting, because there's really no way to test some of those things in real life to know that they work or not, except for just to experiment with putting them there. And it would be much better to not have to do that. But this is just where we are right now in technology and medical training, is that we need to experiment in real life to then figure out how to make it all work in digital world. Some of our onboarding challenges included the fact that staff shortages are at an all-time high. It's hard to get people in headsets if you can't get people to be there. Resources are overutilized. We've had a lot of challenges with many people at the main hospital would need to go travel to another location to do their VR training. And it's not far, it's just a golf cart ride away. But if you just get off a 12-hour shift, it's kind of hard to get people to go do their training. So these will be continuing challenges, but as we build up more modules, it'll become okay, well, now it's worthwhile because you're going to go over there and do, like, 4 or 5 different things at one time. And maybe we can get some priority around the fact that this training should be done and that you need the time and space to go do your training. So we're aware of a lot of these onboarding challenges, and this will continue to be a problem for hospitals. One of the ways to solve this issue is to just get more VR training out there. We're doing an academic study right now with Dr. Nissa Guzman. And so basically the gist of this is to check the efficacy of virtual reality training, specifically on falls. Our goals were to just determine if the VR improves a nurse's confidence and competency. So it's basically a survey. So you go in before and you go in after. We have the data of, like, how well did you do? How well did you do the second time? And then your final try. And we see tremendous improvement on people when they do it the first time, second time, third time. By the third time, they're usually hitting 100% or 98%. Every once in a while, they'll miss one thing, but they very quickly get very good at this game. The confidence goes way up because as soon as you realize, like, yes, I always remember to check the couch because sometimes there's something weird over there, or occasionally there's a medicine bottle sitting over on that other area. I'm going to be very vigilant about that, and I feel confident when I walk into a real room because I'm going to remember to look. This is huge. So far, these study results have been very, very positive, and we're ongoing with this. It's going to be a couple more months before we actually have this study information out. So where are we going with all of this? We're going everywhere. So first thing that we'd like to do is take our falls module, because this module currently has no real patients. It has one fake patient in it. We'd like to expand that dramatically to include a realistic human patient who you actually talk to, who you use face tracking and eye tracking to ensure when you're talking to the person that you're talking to them and that you're putting on a good face for them and providing those soft skills that every nurse and primary care technician needs when communicating with patients and trying to get a message across to them. So learners' interactions, directly interacting with the non-player character or the patient in our case, trying to get that kind of like realistic training, patient provider communication feedback loop. That's our next step on this path, like pulling in, anything we can to improve soft skills. We're also looking at adding more randomized scenarios, and we'd like to add the hand tracking and mixed reality as well. We wouldn't want to necessarily do the room, like have mixed reality items in a room, because then that'll take a hospital room. However, if we can have mixed reality items in a blank room and it looks like it's the hospital room, then you can walk around. And that's kind of a huge deal when you talk about putting people in VR who aren't familiar with VR. If they're just putting on the headset and they're just using their hands and they're just walking around, it feels very natural. They're going to have less motion sickness. They're going to feel more connected to the material. They're even going to get more of the spatial interaction that they crave for, and it'll feel real. It'll feel really, really good. So that's what we want to do in the next step with this module. We'd also like to expand our other modules. We'd also like to expand our other modules with other partnerships with hospitals, medical facilities, build out an entire suite of modules in this path, and partner with other developers to ensure that every hospital has enough VR training that it's really worthwhile to put money and effort into your training. That's one of the things that I see. A lot of places have 20 headsets and then 4 modules. And that's not enough. So my call to action to everybody out there is get involved. If you're building medical modules like this, talk to me, talk to other people. Let's all partner together and let's start really raising the roof on medical training. We need to help them, and they are in bad shape when it comes to training. And we know that we can move this needle, but we're going to need to partner together to like create the best, most efficient training possible. So absolutely get out there and do something. Feel free to talk to me if you're building things. I am more than happy to provide guidance and information. So thank you very much. Amany, I think I'm good here if you want to open it up for any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robin. That's really beyond amazing. And I'd like to open it for questions. I have a lot of questions, but I'd like it for anyone here to ask questions.
Give
I
my
think, yeah. Okay, so
yeah.
I had a question here. How did you build the digital twin? Did you use photogrammetry? What kind of application did you use?
We did not use photogrammetry. What we did was we actually get the floor plans, and then we get a ton of pictures, and we build it like a game, like proper game development. So it is built in Unity, and we purchase assets when we can. For example, the bed. The bed is a combination of a purchased bed that we found on the Unity Asset Store, and then us modifying it to actually make it work on mobile development. So sometimes you can get a little lift from other work that people have done, just like you do with any type of project. Sometimes you can buy some things because they exist, and there's a lot out there in medical. So there's a lot of medical things we didn't need to create. We didn't need to create the drip pole, for example. That was something we purchased, and again, we had to touch it off and make it nice and make it work for mobile. But the entire digital twin was custom created from plans and pictures, and just basic hard work. And you get that crisp line, you get the proper, everything's nice collider wise. And this is important because if I'm taking my hand and I'm using a cleaning device and I'm putting it against the wall and I'm cleaning, it needs to look good and it looks high definition. And we also need to be able to like put that collider exactly right and it's all perfect. So the photogrammetry is getting a lot better for sure. I think that's kind of the future of where all of this will go, is when you just drop something in the room and it really just works. But right now I feel more comfortable with we build it and then we have pieces that could be taken apart. So if anything, like there's a room with a bunch of shelves in it, if those shelves don't exist in another room, I don't have to do a photogrammetry of the other room. All I have to do is go, oh, they don't belong here. Boop, they're off.
Okay. I always tell my students, don't make users bend in VR. So, so how do you make the nurses clean the room using the mop? Like, is there a kind of strategy?
Yeah, so we had a lot of conversations on the bending situation, because you don't want people to bend because you have a battery on your face and that's awkward and heavy. And so we kind of went for the in-between state of range grab, but not a lot, just like that much. So if you start to bend over and you put your hand like that, it'll pull a piece of trash right off the floor,
Yeah.
which is cool. Wish I had that in real life. But we're giving them the little like, okay, but you should bend a little bit. So we give them instruction to use their knees. So if anything, what we're really doing is building a little bit of an onboarding for proper training and ergonomics for bending, which is cool. Because I saw people doing a lot more of that in VR than in real life, where you like go like, whoop, like, yes, use your knees. That's good. Good.
Oh, okay. How long was each module? Because especially when you are onboarding students to VR. So sometimes when I first onboard my students in VR, I usually make it like 15 minutes because sometimes they're not used to it. They don't have headsets at home so that they can play around. And sometimes I feel like I took them to Engage XR like probably 4 weeks ago, and we spent 1 hour, and some of them were like, I had Oculus Pro, so I didn't have any problems with motion sickness, but they had Oculus 2, and they were like, one or two of them were got dizzy. So when you onboard them first, and then they take these modules, how long is each module?
Yeah, 15 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. Absolutely. We also put a small, little tiny onboarding in
Mm,
there too. So it's a really basic room. You go in, so you get that little feeling. It's really, really short. It might be like 2 to 3 minutes. Go in, get the idea of how to do grab, interacting with the screen, because we faked
mm,
up an Epic screen as well. So Epic's in there in a lightweight way, click, click, click. Okay, I'm in Epic. And interacting with all these devices just to get you that understanding of how are you going to use this application? How do you move in this application? How do you click, interact? How do you do things? And then you're
mm,
out. So that short onboarding also helps to build a little bit of confidence for when you're now in the training. Ideally, we'd have more, and even more ideally, we'd have them playing some games first, like for a couple weeks, really get
mm,
used to it. We know that it's just a matter of time. We did a huge, very similar project, but in hospitality, uh, maybe a year or so ago, or 2 years ago rather, and when we asked people like, who has a VR headset, that sort of thing, hardly anybody. When we went to Tucson Medical, there were a lot more hands raised. There were a lot of people that were like, "Oh yeah, I tried that at so and so's house," or I did this thing at a adventure park and they had VR headsets," or "Oh yeah, my kid has one." So that is really, really positive. And eventually, one of these days, we're going to walk into a facility and everyone's like, "Yeah, I have one at home. Yeah, no big deal." Just a matter of time. And it's just like cell phones, just like everything else we've had technology adoption for. We're just at this certain spot in the technology adoption curve that we're getting close to the bend, and it's gonna shoot up soon. There's gonna be new headsets that are lighter. As you know, the Oculus Quest Pro uses the pancake lens, so thin, so awesome. And the visual clarity of pass through is really huge. If you go in there, you don't have to waste your VR time in the menu because you have pass through and the menu is just a menu. That changes a lot too. If I can keep you in mixed reality as long as possible before you go into virtual reality, that also saves kind of that VR burn down time that you have. So there's going to be a lot of strategies, especially over this next couple of years with the headset wars and Apple coming out with a device, and Pico's got new devices, and Pimax has new device. Everybody has new devices right now. So it's going to get really interesting really fast.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, so in terms of the academic study, are you also so I as far as I remember, you said that the focus is on also the student's self-confidence or confidence or self-efficacy when they are doing the training in VR. Are you also measuring engagement?
Yeah,
Because
so there's
I want,
there's an entire
yeah.
survey.
Mm,
I should have put the survey questions in here actually. There's an entire survey that's mapped out about that, about like, do you find it engaging? Do you feel more confident? Many of those types of questions. And it is just about feeling right now because it's really hard to test much other than test results and
mm,
how do you feel about it. But it's really important because feeling more confident after a training is kind of everything. I know if I've ever watched like a YouTube video and I felt like, oh, wow, that was it. That was the missing piece of information I needed. I'm all set. I feel like I can go in and take over the world. I can go have this meeting and I'm confident that I know what I'm saying. I'm confident that I'm going to say the right phrase or do the right thing. I mean, that puts you on the path to success very quickly.
yeah. I'm asking you this question because I'm really curious to know or to read a study in which we see like a control group, students doing it in real life, and students doing it in VR, because in grad school I took this course where Columbia partnered with a nursing school in Pennsylvania, and the nursing students were not engaged, and I was like, well, guys, the solution is VR. It has to be there. They have to study, they have to examine things their way. And we interviewed like professors, and we attended like online classes, and we realized that the students really needed something beyond just text-based instruction, where you see, well, okay, the patient now is 52, hypertension and stuff like that. So this is all text-based and exam oriented. And so students would have low retention after this class, and probably they need to read more or ask others, which is a waste of time actually after they graduate. But if they did this in VR, and I actually remember I took this gamification course, and I had many with it's Sententia gamification, and I met many professors who actually work in the medical industry. And one of them, she used to teach, and they had this VR app. And she said that, and I actually remember, I vividly remember what you said once, the freedom to fail. And she said that one of her students, she was treating a patient in VR, so it's like it's not a real patient, and the patient died. And and then she repeated the whole module, and then she realized why the patient died. 2 weeks later, a patient came with the same symptoms, and the patient was alive because she realized it was the same case. It was exactly the
Wow.
same case. Yeah, and this was from the mouth
Oh
of the
my,
professor.
that's magnificent.
That's really great. She said that VR gives you the freedom to fail as well. And you fail in VR, it's okay. I was
That's
doing my
gonna
course.
stick with you too. That failure, like my patient died. I know it was a VR patient, but it still died. I mean, yeah, you get addicted, like you get attached to these characters.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
you get the feedback from the training, and why the patient died. You should have done this and that. And then she avoided this situation in real life, which she saved a patient's life. And
That's
so
amazing. That's
this is
so
really
amazing.
great. This is really great. Yeah, what you're
Yeah,
doing
and
is
and
really
they, that entertainment, the entertainment value of it cannot be overlooked. We've heard tons and tons of cases too in the news, nothing to do with VR, but people that watched like House, because it was so well researched and the cases were kind of real-ish, that there have been a lot of those situations too, where like this entertainment provided that engaging part of it that was enough to get somebody to remember something. So it's not a big leap to go, what if it was me that did it? What if I'm the one that was in the situation and I went through that scenario and I learned from it? I mean, that's going to stick with you for life.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I myself, I went to Engage. I was filming for this instructional design course, and that was I did this Oxford Life experience and Engage. It's about resuscitating a baby, and the baby at first died, and I didn't know what to do. I'm not a nurse. I was just trying to explore,
Right,
and
right.
then I respawned in the same environment, and then the baby was alive and crying, and it was so beautiful, trying to understand how I can resuscitate the baby and my hand movement and stuff like that. So I feel like if it's really horrible if we can imagine nurses doing this in real life, but if it's in VR, it can be like rerun, and then they can actually understand from this experience. I also love your user research and what you did. And I always love it when developers they do like design thinking, or they do user research, and also they do academic study. So it's really inspiring, amazing, and I don't think that many people would go in this approach. I've worked with some developers, and they're like, oh, I don't care about research. Let's give me game mechanics. I'm like,
It's,
no way.
this is actually the thing. I'm like, why did we go into this 3-pound XR business, right? Because we're a cool game company, and
Yeah.
yeah, we could just build stuff for people, like work for hire, and that's what you're probably used to, and that doesn't work because you go and you build something for somebody, and that you've handed it off, and now they don't know what to do with it. So we've kind of changed our entire process that we accelerate other companies, like when you've been accelerated by us, when you're done, you should know how to handle this. Now, these medical projects are actually ours, so the partnership with them is more of they're providing the information to build the applications, but they're ours. But in the case of VR Workout, that's their project, and we're just using our design expertise and principles to accelerate them and make sure that when it's time to kick them out of the nest, they know what they're doing 100%, and they don't need us anymore. And that's what we want to do, is we want to make sure that we're growing the ecosystem the right way, where you're successful after we're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So I
What?
did see a question on the UV
Oh,
light.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. I
so
didn't.
yeah, that is a super, super cool feature. There's so also in that menu, we saw the checklist. When you keep going through, you also will get your performance feedback for all the items that you missed, all the items that were correct and incorrect, incorrect and correct, and also percentage clean. So any surface, like all of the surfaces are mapped so that you know what percentage of them should have been cleaned for those deep room cleaning areas. And then we'll give you that total amount. And we've seen people get really obsessive about that. Like they'll see the number and they'll be like, what do you mean I got 63%? And then turn it back off again and go back at it. It's what you want.
Yeah, yeah.
We would like to get into some other areas too, like order of operations in the room is kind of a thing. When you talk about cleaning, you should clean in a certain orientation around the room, like, whether it's, I think it's from the bathroom first, cleanest to dirtiest. So not the bathroom first, the wall, and go around that side. And we'd like to set zones up for that, and then be able to tell people like, yeah, you kind of went over here, which has some cross-contamination potential. Not saying you necessarily cross-contaminated, but that's bad practice. We're looking at doing a feature for that too, where we track everything in this application. I know where you are at any given moment in the application. So I have all the data, and then we're going to put this into our Reality Link application, the metrics and analytics, so that we can sit down with the user and say, hey, look, here's how you went around the room. That was not your best choice. You should go like this. Anything that would give that opportunity to sit down and coach somebody on better ways to do things. And then next time we build that into the application, because now we learn what those processes are or what the better way to do things are. And then we'll put those in the application and start giving you feedback in the app for each one of those legs of the application.
I've heard about X APIs, experience APIs. So do you use these to track performance?
We rolled our own. We built our own metrics and analytics. So we track everything. We track, you picked up this item, you put the item in the wrong bin. And you get positive and negative feedback immediately. So if you take a piece of trash and you put it in the laundry bin, you're going to get the big thumbs down with the bad boop sound, and you'll be like, oh, that was the wrong spot, wasn't it? Or if you clean an item, you don't get the satisfying ding, I got it right, until you clean the whole splotch. And you will, because it's really fun. Like you'll just be like, oh, I got to get this done. Like anything that feels satisfying like that, you're going to finish it. And cleaning in VR, and you see an item and you can see the visual difference that it's changing, you're going to want to complete it, because that's what our brains do. Our brains are just designed to complete patterns.
Yeah. Robin, that's beyond amazing. Yeah, I got some ideas for my game. So
Excellent. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
language is an important topic that comes up in these all the time. We wanted to add multi-language in here. We want to add complete voiceover and do all the instructions in multiple languages. Why wouldn't we do this? Why wouldn't we always do this? You know, it's ridiculous to force people down one language when ESL is such a big thing. And we would want to leverage the capabilities of VR to expand into language areas.
yeah, that's true. Especially that language learning is like you can open like the sky is the limit. Like field trips. You can actually teach students science.
Hmm.
It's like CLIL when you teach a subject matter in another language. So yeah, I mean, it's you open your imagination to anything that the students can do, and you can experiment with it. But your this simulation for VR nursing is or surgical is really great and goes beyond amazing. Um, I remember Shell Games when they analyzed those games and then they came up with I Expect You to Die. So because you are a game developer and you know what people would think of, I think that's also uh, really exemplified in your simulation. And I feel like how they have to clean using the mop or doing all these activities that they do, which actually it's it's real life activity that they have to do in the hospital. That's really amazing, and I wish you
Yeah,
all the best.
and it also teaches them a little bit about like what's the job about, you know, like we need more people in this industry doing this job. How can we get people exposed to what is this job all about anyway? VR is the answer. Like I can put that headset on, you're like, hey, do you want to know what it's like to be an environmental services person at a hospital? Here you go.
Yeah, that's true. Um, any other questions from participants? We'd love to hear any questions or any comments. Yeah. Oh, okay. Anissa.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Anissa.
Yeah, so she's curious to learn more about the trainer's experience using these tools as part of a training experience and any feedback they have provided from a trainer perspective. Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Mm,
So definitely there was you know, it took them a minute. They had to they had to get familiar with VR themselves. They had to learn all about the devices and how it works and like what can go wrong. Like, oh, my controller's not working. I need to check the battery. You know, some of those kinds of things. So they had to go through all that, which was fundamentally no different than any other device that when they become a trainer for something else, it just feels weird because it's something new and exciting, and also considering that it's like a game thing sometimes puts a blocker in people's brains. Fortunately, the people we're working with are all very kind of game friendly. Some of them had their own headsets already. Some of them are avid gamers. So that really helped a lot. So they were very quick to give us good feedback on, okay, I get this, but what I'm seeing is that other people are having trouble with the movement because they're not familiar with the gaming controls. Can we slow it down? Can we adjust snap turn so that it's not so much? At one point, we had snap turn in there. If you're in a Quest 2 or Pro, anything mobile, you could just turn around. Sometimes people don't think about that. We also put snap turn in all of our things because sometimes you might be sitting or you might be in a wheelchair and you know, turning around is a little more difficult or will be more challenging. So we always like to have that in there. And they had us remove that because people would hit the button by accident. So now the instruction is just turn around if you need to do something that you're turning around, which is kind of good from connecting you to the space perspective. So we got a lot of that sort of thing. We also got some of the, oh, okay, well, you know, it turns out that needs to be over here. We also had a ton of conversations around procedures because doing this creates conversations where somebody is picking apart, you know, your procedures, your care bundles, we're going line by line in a spreadsheet, figuring out how to map these things out. You start seeing patterns, repeating patterns, and we're like, wait, hey, that doesn't make sense. Why would you put this here when you save this thing down here? And there was a lot of value in just having an outside company like us going through this and asking questions, because they would start asking, "Oh, why do we do it that way? That doesn't even make, we don't do that. Do we do that?" There was a lot of those conversations. So I think that drove some change for policies and procedures as well, because it gave them an opportunity to see what it's like when somebody else tries to actually run your procedure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin. That was really rich and incredibly amazing. And I really appreciate whatever you do. You're a game designer, you design for education. That's really great. That's really great. Thank you so much for coming today. And it was really, really a great honor to have you today and hear about um, your VR design and your simulation that you have designed and the study behind it and all of these great things. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amany. Thanks for having me.